Live from Webcast One Live Studios, it's the Strong Tower Financial Hour, where we help you tackle financial issues no matter how big or small. We help people go from being broke and scared to having hope with a plan. And now, here is your host, the owner and lead financial coach at Strong Tower Consulting, Justin Bennett.
And we are live here at the Webcast One Studios. It is the Strong Tower Financial Hour. I am Justin Bennett, your host, and thank you very much for joining us today, where we do help people from being broken scared and giving them hope with a plan. Broken scared from what? Broken scared with money problems. That's what we help people do, is get away from their money problems and have financial peace. Thank you again for joining us today. On today's show, we're going to talk about the basics of money. Now, the last several weeks, we've brought people in to talk about investing and in insurance, and talk about buying a house, selling a house, and those things. And those are all important. But we're going to really spend some time today talking about the very basics when it comes to personal finance. Stuff that everyone needs to be doing if they want to win with money. So we're going to cover things like the emergency fund. What is that? We're also going to talk about budgeting. Budgeting. I know we try to avoid that, like seeing, the dentist, but I'm going to show you how to budget without pulling your hair out. And it's something that you're going to want to do regularly after you learn how to implement this. We're also going to talk about today how to hold yourself accountable with that budget. So you have a budget, it's starting to work, but how do I hold myself accountable to make sure that we follow the plan? We'll also talk about that today. Well, let's first talk about the emergency fund. And what is an emergency fund? Well, in short, an emergency fund helps you cover unexpected expenses. If you've lived life long enough, you know life's going to happen. You're not going to have a perfect budget. You're not going to have a perfect month. You're going to have things that come up like car repairs and medical bills and those things. How are you going to pay for them? A credit card? Overdraft protection? Skip out on paying a bill? How are you going to pay for emergencies? This is why we recommend an emergency fund. And again, an emergency fund, the thing you need to keep in mind is it is for emergencies. Now, what constitutes emergency? Well, think about some of the budget busters that may happen. What about car repairs? The average car repair, studies show us, are between $300 and $400 is the average car repair. Do you even have $300 to $400 set aside for a car repair? Probably want an emergency fund for that. What about medical bills? What about a trip to the ER and you don't have enough health insurance to cover, or you don't have any health insurance to cover it, which is not good? How are you going to cover an ER visit? Your percentage of what you have to pay for that. Well, a good reason to have an emergency fund. And to back up real quick, the reason why we're talking about emergency fund is you hear over and over on this show, we use the Dave Ramsey 7 baby steps on how to get out of debt and build wealth. I want to cover the first 3 steps of those 7 because that's going to be a part of our discussion here today. Baby step 1 is $1,000 cash in the bank as an emergency fund. Now, that $1,000 is a small starter emergency fund, and the reason why is you want to get the baby step 2, which is the debt snowball. This is where you list all of the debts, smallest to largest, based on balance, everything but the house. Pay minimum payments on everything but the smallest one, and every dollar you can squeeze after the $1,000 has been funded for that emergency fund, you pay the smallest debt off. When that debt's paid off, you take all the money from that debt and you pay off the next debt. And so each time you're adding the payment, and it builds more snow, until you get to that final debt, and that's gone. And then you go to baby step 3, which you take that $1,000 account and now raise it to 3 to 6 months of expenses. But what we're spending our time on today is that $1,000 account for those who have debt but no emergency fund. So again, that's the emergency fund. It is for emergencies like your car repairs, house repairs, medical bills. Maybe one of the kids throw the baseball through the window. How are you going to fix the window if you don't have a plan for it? And that is why we use an emergency fund. Now, sadly, statistics tell us most of us do not have that much money in savings. In fact, a couple years ago, the National Credit Counseling Society found that 64% of Americans do not have $1,000 saved for emergencies. 64% of Americans do not have $1,000 saved for emergencies. Wow. So when you go home for Easter and you're seeing all the family, 2 out of 3 households within your family don't even have $1,000. Or if you count 3 houses on your street, 2 of those 3 houses don't even have $1,000 saved. So when I ask people, well, what do you have for an emergency fund? I typically hear, oh, we have overdraft protection, or we have that credit card, or we have, a line of credit, either a personal line of credit or a home equity line of credit. No one really likes to use debt as an emergency fund, but that's where we were resorted to. And again, you want cash in the bank as your emergency fund. Now, there are some basic rules or things to keep in mind when you're having an emergency fund. Let's talk about first what you do not want in an emergency fund. Your emergency fund is not a vacation fund. Your emergency fund is not, oh, honey, I'm too tired to cook, let's go out to eat fund. And it's definitely not pad in the checking account. An emergency fund is just that, is for emergencies. So the things that you want to remember about an emergency fund, it needs to be in a separate account. Do not put your emergency fund in the primary checking account. If you do, you will be robbed from the marts, as my friend and coach Chris Hogan says. Walmart, Kmart, you ever done that? You go to Walmart just for a couple things of eggs, or maybe you're getting ready for the big basketball tournaments, or getting some party favorites, and you turn your head to the left and you go, uh-oh, big screen, on sale, $100. Ooh, emergency. No. If you have your emergency fund in your account, you will buy other things that are not an emergency, so it needs to be separate. So it can be in a savings account, a money market. You can even put it in a coffee can or an envelope. I don't care, but it needs to be separate away from your primary checking account. The other thing to remember when it comes to the emergency fund, it gives you a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of pad. It gives you a little space between you and money. So when life happens, you don't have to worry about not eating or not whatever you're going to cut out of the budget. You simply go to the emergency fund. But remember, it is for emergencies only. Your emergency fund is for emergencies only. I'll never forget when I very first started teaching these baby steps and how to get baby step 1 $1,000. And one of the couple that was in my class, they were like a lot of families where they didn't have a lot of money saved up. In fact, they had no money saved up, and pretty quickly got to $1,000. They were excited. They never had $1,000 before, and they set it aside and they put it in an emergency fund, in a savings account or a money market account. And no sooner than they got that $1,000, the water heater went out. Wow, water heater goes out. Has that ever happened to you where the water heater goes out or something goes out? I asked them, how did you feel to get $1,000 and then the water heater went out? And by the way, it was going to cost $800 to fix. They said, Justin, we felt every negative thought and emotion. Why is it we take 1 step forward, we go 2 steps backwards? Why can't we get ahead? Man, this stinks. We want to do the right thing with money. We were told to get $1,000. We get the $1,000, and now we got to take $800 out to pay for the water heater. Well, the water heater repairman comes in and gives them a new water heater. They give him the $800. Water heater guy leaves. They said, you know what? After he left, we talked about it, and we said, Justin, this was the very first time that when something like this came up, we didn't use a credit card or overdraft protection. We didn't go to mom and dad or skip out on paying a bill. We simply stepped up and paid for an emergency with the emergency fund. We used the cash in the emergency fund to do that. And that felt empowering. That was inspiring. And soon they were able to get that $1,000 replenished and went to that baby step 2, which was the debt snowball. So that's the power of the emergency fund. When you have the emergency fund, I'll never forget, for me, the very first time we got the $1,000 emergency fund, when we got it and we weren't using credit cards, we weren't using overdraft protection, I'll never forget, my wife and I, Jessica, our stress level, it went way down. The moment we had $1,000 in an account, we knew we weren't going to touch it unless it was emergencies only, and our stress level went from here to here. It went down considerably. Why? We had breathing room, we had pad, and now it gave us more excitement and more energy to go after paying off the debt. So that's the power of the emergency fund. But I want you to imagine this. What would it be like to have 3 to 6 months, at least, set aside in your rainy day fund, that emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses? And for most people, that's $15,000, $20,000. Some is $30,000, $40,000. But imagine having that much cash sitting aside for emergencies only. You know what happens when you have no debt and a 6-month emergency fund and you lose your job? It doesn't bother you that much. That's right. When you don't have any debt payments other than maybe a house and you've got 3 to 6 months of savings and you lose your job, life's still okay. I'll never forget my wife's cousin, he doing the baby steps, and they got to baby step 3 and they had 6 months worth of expenses and just got his MBA degree and no debt, cash, and all those kind of things. And he's excited. He's got a job he likes. He's got the MBA degree, and then got the fateful news one day. Guess what? You lost your job, along with several others, as the company was doing some major layoffs. He wasn't stressed in the least bit. In fact, they had a vacation scheduled for Disney World. And they went on the trip to Disney World, and they weren't worried about, I got to hurry up and get home, find a job. They were able to enjoy the trip, pay cash, and get through. And you know what? When you lose your job and you have no debt and a big pile of money, you don't take the first job that gives you an offer. You take the first job that you want to take, not because I have to have a job to be able to pay the bills. So that's why it's important to get that $1,000 baby step 1 emergency fund. When that is done, you go to that baby step 2, debt snowball, pay off all of your debts, again, listing them smallest to largest based on balance, pay minimum payments and everything but the smallest one, and attack those, get all of your debts paid off. Then when you go to baby step 3, finish that emergency fund and get 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. I think you'll agree, when you have no debt, 6 months emergency fund, and control of your money, control of your life, how awesome would that feel? It would feel awesome, wouldn't it? Well, that's the emergency fund, and later on in the show today, we are going to have Jim White, a financial coach. A good friend of mine is a financial coach out of Texas. He does what I do every day, and we're going to talk more about the emergency fund. We're also, later in the show, we're going to be talking about how to budget. Yes, how to budget. It's not as hard as you think. It doesn't take as long as you think, and it'll actually help you from pulling your hair out each and every month about money. We're also going to talk about how to hold yourself accountable with this thing called a budget, and it really does work, believe it or not. And in fact, almost everybody that I teach, after they do this budget thing, they never go back to the old way. They do a budget. We'll see you after the break.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave, and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
And we're back here at the Strong Tower Financial Hour. Thank you for joining us. I am Justin Bennett, your host, where we do help people from being broke and scared and give them hope with a plan. And the last segment, we were talking about the emergency fund and the steps to have an emergency fund and the rules, the what to's and not to do's when it comes to your emergency fund. Well, just in case you think I'm the only weird one that thinks you should have an emergency fund, I have on the line with us fellow friend and financial coach, Jim White. Jim, how's it going today?
Hey, great. It's been great. Glad to be on the program with you.
Well, Jim, we had you on a while back, and we had such rave reviews, we thought we'd bring you back. Might help my rating some. I don't know.
Well, I'm here to help. I can help you with ratings. I can help people with budgets. That's what we do.
You're awesome, Jim. So, and rumor has it also that last week, you live in Texas, you went golfing, and for folks up here in Iowa like me who like to golf, we can't golf on snow very well.
No, weather was like 72 degrees and nice breeze and real comfortable to play golf. It was fun.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks. Appreciate that. Well, glad you had a good time. Well, Jim, you're like me. You believe big time in the emergency fund. So why, in your opinion, is the emergency fund so important?
Well, I'll just give you a real live example that just happened just today. I was talking with a young couple. He works in the oil field area, the oil field business, and he was telling me that, we're thinking about having another child. They were a young couple, but then I was told that maybe my job might be gone in 6 months. Just got through getting rid of all their debt. They have no debt other than a truck payment. But when he said that, we locked down and said, okay, now we need to save for a real big emergency fund, because what if you're out of work for 3 months? And how would you live? And your wife is going to go haywire, and if there's a baby coming on, then we're really going to have some pressure. I said, how would it feel if you had $30,000 in the bank for an emergency fund to live in case you lost your job, and then you wouldn't have to go work for McDonald's and flipping hamburgers? You could pick and choose your job in a couple of months and have plenty of money to do so. So that's why you need that big emergency fund.
Wow, Jim, that right before in the first segment, that's what we talked about, because I've got my wife has a cousin who that actually happened. Had no debt but the house, had 3 to 6 months of expenses, I believe 6 months, just got his MBA degree, was starting to build a career, and lost his job.
Right. It happens now quite often now.
Yep. And so it just goes right in line with what we're talking about. He even had a trip to Disney World for the family, didn't blink an eye, went on vacation, and exactly what you said, Jim, that he was selective. He didn't take the first job that came his way. Right. He took the job that he wanted. And so it's just good to hear another coach echo the exact same thing. So when you're coaching, and well, you just talked about that, but why don't you walk through what happens when you get a brand new client? Let's say they've got a lot of debt. You and I believe in the Dave Ramsey baby steps, and baby step one, $1,000. Why is it so important in your mind? What do you tell clients to get that $1,000? Why is it so important?
Well, if they're wanting to get out of debt, and that's the reason for coming to see me to begin with, or they're just all in array and they can't figure out and they're disorganized and disoriented, I said, well, then I'll look at the budget and say, okay, if you don't have an emergency fund, then where are you going to get the money for the emergency, i.e., your plumbing bill of $300? Where's that come from? If you're in problems with the debt, either you're going to go to a payday loan and pay 700% interest, or you're going to use a credit card paying 29% interest. And if you had the $300 in the bank, you could write the check and be done with it and breathe and sleep at night. But and if you don't have that, and it's a Murphy repellent by having that $1,000, because it's going to rain, and guess what? You're going to have an emergency, and it will happen. Usually when we start the process with coaching a client, in 30 days they will have an emergency. Something will happen. The washing machine goes out, a minor car repair, or a plumbing repair, or electrical repair, you name it, it happens. And if you've got the money set aside, then and that becomes a very good relief because you got the money. You don't have to go back to credit cards.
Absolutely. So walk us through, Jim, because I mean, I see this every day with my clients, and I'm sure you do with yours. So they get that $1,000, or at least they're on the way to building that money, and they had to use that. How does it feel for your clients when the money is available to cover the emergencies, where before they'd go to that credit card or skip out on paying a bill?
Well, they love it for the simple fact they have a plan now. It's all about planning. You know, they didn't fail to plan. They just didn't plan. So if you plan for those things, it's amazing how smooth your life goes and how smooth the money goes, because you've got money to take care of the emergencies. And if you use $500 out of the emergency account of $1,000, then you stop your debt snowball and you put that $500 back in there, so you can always have $1,000. And after that happens, most of my clients will come back and say, you know, I would feel a lot more comfortable I had $2,000 in the bank for emergency fund, because things cost so much nowadays. They'll proceed and go $2,000 in emergency fund, which they feel a lot more comfortable with than $1,000, and then they go back to the debt snowball. So that's a call that they make. But you know, a washing machine, you know, costs $600, $700 now, so it depletes that emergency fund pretty quick.
It sure does. And so, you know, explain to the folks also, one of the things I enjoy as a coach doing is seeing the stress change. A lot of my clients, when they come in the office the first time, you can just sense the stress in the face, and then their vocal cords, their tones, their words. But just, I don't know, explain just the change, the transformation you see, the hope that they see after they get that emergency fund.
Well, first of all, when we first see the clients, it's doom and gloom. And first of all, you got to give them hope. And so when I give them that hope that this is doable and it actually can work, even with their finances that they have, they begin to, that stress begins to leave. After they complete the emergency fund, when they come back in, and hopefully they're done it in 30 days or 45 days, whatever the case, when they come back in, all their demeanor and their facial expressions are released, and they're less stressed. And I can see it on their face. And I actually tell them, I said, your stress level is down today because of the emergency fund, right? Absolutely. We have it. We didn't think we could do it, but you told us we could, and we went out and did it quicker than we thought, and we are happy.
You know, and that's exactly right. And even this Saturday, or last Saturday rather, as I opened up my email in the morning, I got one from my client here, and I want to read this short part of the email. It says, here's a fun little thing. We are going this morning on Saturday to open our savings accounts. One will be our fully funded $1,000 emergency account, smiley face. I also just finished writing out our current bills. I know it may sound weird, but it is a nice feeling to know I can pay all my bills on time, and I know how much money we have all the time. Thanks for your help. And this was unsolicited. I didn't ask them how things are going. They literally just emailed me and said, Justin, we're going to have our $1,000 in the account. This is so awesome. And Jim, this is the stuff that we see every day. Absolutely, every day. And it's just amazing to see. So what about you, Jim? Tell us a story where you've had to use the emergency fund and how it's affected your life.
Well, I remember the first time I had to use the emergency fund, and I was just doom and gloom around the house. We had a car repair, $580. I don't remember the exact amount, but I was not wanting to use my emergency fund. It took some work to put that money in that emergency fund, and I didn't want to use it. But I didn't have the extra money in the operating account to pay for it. So I was, in 2 or 3 days, I was just griping and complaining. And finally, my wife just said, you know, she has a really good sense of humor sometimes. She said, what's the emergency fund for? I said, well, for emergencies. It's, well, don't you think the car repair was an emergency? That's not a normal operating budget item. I said, yeah, right. I said, you know, why don't you just shut up and write the check and let's go on. and from that point on, I didn't worry about using the money for the emergency fund for the emergency because it was there. Now I have a fully funded emergency fund of, I'm a little bit more nerdish than some folks. I have a fully funded emergency fund for a year.
Wow.
I have a year's worth of expenses in the savings account, and I probably have a little bit more than that. So if something happened to me, we could probably live 18 months without having a lick of making an income.
And just the stress changes a whole bunch when you're in that position. And I know for me, just recently, I had a family emergency where my father passed away. And you know what? I didn't work for a couple of weeks. And with owning your own business, as you know, Jim, when you own your own business, if you're not out there going to get the business, money's not coming in.
That's very true.
And so for me to have that emergency fund in place, I was able to help my mom with my dad in his final couple of weeks of life, but also be able to grieve and take that time to grieve versus, oh, I got to go back to work. I got to make sure I got time off. I didn't have any of that because I had an emergency fund.
No stress.
And it made that part a lot easier. Well, Jim, we got less than a minute here. Anything else you would like to tell our viewing audience about the emergency fund? Any last thing that you'd like to stress and point out?
Well, if you don't have one, you need one. And you need to get it today. You don't need to wait tomorrow. And you don't need to make an excuse that, well, I'll do that and put it off another day. No, you need, if you got the money in the checking account, go to another bank, open it up, and get it in there and have that for your emergency.
Jim, I couldn't have said any better. You did awesome. Jim White with Jim White's Financial Coaching, good friend and fellow coach in Texas. Thank you very much, Jim, for being on our show today.
Absolutely welcome.
Awesome. When we come back, we're going to talk about that lovely B word, the budget, and how you can do a budget, and it actually is not as bad as you think. You won't pull your hair out, and it will give you control and a plan for your life when we come back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
My name is Justin Bennett with Strong Tower Consulting, where we passionately coach individuals, families, and businesses to make better financial decisions that help create success and eliminate financial stress. I offer a free 30-minute consultation where we find out where your situation is. I explain how I do my coaching services. Then it's up to you whether you want to continue. The Bible has, depending on who you believe, 800 to 2,000 scriptures that talk about money alone. So pretty important subject in God's eyes. That's one of the things that I enjoy doing, is help them see God's ways of handling money. You know, it's interesting. Most people that I ask, what would it be like to be debt-free? The common response is, I don't know. I don't think it's possible. But in 90 days, most of my clients go from, I don't think it's possible, to, I'm excited. In 2 years or less, I will be debt-free. There's no tricks, no gimmicks, nothing being sold here. It's just learning how to do money well. This is Strong Tower Financial Hour, where we help people go from being broke and scared to having hope with a plan.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy for Adam Albrecht. financial planner, and AO Wealth Advisor. Adam, tell the folks listening today, just who is Adam Albrecht?
I am a certified financial planner, and I created AO Wealth Advisory a couple years ago to be able to help people with their finances all the way from basic budgeting on to retirement and estate planning.
All right, now that we know who you are, what do you do? How do you help people?
I help people by focusing on 3 key areas, on what they earn, how they invest it wisely, and then also where they give it on, whether it's onto charity or onto family, but do it from a biblical base, using verses that have been around forever, transcendent knowledge that's been around 4,000 plus years.
Call Adam Albrecht, a financial planner with AO Wealth Advisory. Give us your number, Adam.
Yeah, 515-224-7849.
Advisory services offered through Investment Advisors Corp., an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Broker Dealer Financial Services Corp., members FINRA and SIPC. Thanks for watching.
Because I heard you say there's gonna be brighter days. There's gonna be brighter
We are back here at Webcast One Studios. This is the Strong Tower Financial Hour. Glad you are here with us. I am Justin Bennett, your host. And thanks. Earlier, we had Jim White on our show with Jim White Financial Coaching. He's a good friend and fellow financial coach. We do the same thing where we help people give them hope with their money. In the last 2 segments, we were talking about the importance of an emergency fund. If you missed that, please go back and watch the importance of an emergency fund and how to get one. It is imperative that you get it and get one right now. Well, what we're going to talk about now is the fun letter B word called a budget. Yes, a budget. It's one of those things we all know we should be doing, but most of us don't. We're afraid that either we're going to have so many rules, or we're not going to be able to go on vacation, we're not going to be able to have any fun, or we're afraid the spouse won't want to get on board, or we've tried that budget before and it didn't work, so why do I want to stress out trying one again because it just made me more mad and miserable? Well, I'm going to walk you through how to do a budget. And the reason why I want to teach you how to budget is simply this. Most people, when they try to budget, they do one of several things. They either they just peek in the checkbook and see if they've got money left over, or they go to the ATM machine, and if it has a balance, ooh, I've got money, so I'll go spend it. That's not a good plan. Or what they'll do is they'll add up the receipts at the end of the month, and they'll go, oh, wow, we've got we spent this much money, and so that's how much money we got to budget, but the next month we spend a different amount, and we wonder why it's different. Well, looking back at what we're doing in life with our money is called accounting. And there's nothing wrong with accounting, but if that's how you drive your financial plan, all you're doing is looking backwards, then I want you to imagine going down Interstate 35, going north, 65 miles an hour, but you're looking through the back mirror, the back window. You're going to crash. This is why you want to be looking forward, and that's what you do when you budget is you look forward. When you do a budget correctly, here's the good news. You're going to feel like you got a raise. Because when you watch and pay attention to your money, managed money works better for you. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about 4 keys today on how to budget. And if you follow these 4 keys, you will win with your money. It's going to happen. So let's go over the first key. The first key is you need to be doing a brand new budget every single month. So every month, create a new budget. Now, you might be thinking, well, why do I want to do that? Well, John Maxwell said it best. A budget is knowing where your money went, or instead of knowing where your money goes, instead of wondering where it went. And so when you do a brand new budget every month, it makes you think about what's happening, because you have 2 sides of the equation when it comes to budgeting. You have your income side and you have the expense side. Now, some of you might get paid the same amount every 2 weeks or once a month or the 1st and the 15th, and you're thinking, well, why do I need to worry about the income side? Well, what if you get paid every 2 weeks? You and I both know you have 2 additional months. You have 2 months where you have 3 paychecks. If you get paid the 1st and the 15th, that's okay. But what about the times that you get overtime, or you get a bonus, or that annual profit sharing, or whatever, or you had reduced hours at work? So the first thing you do is you add up all your income. But the other part of the reason why we do a brand new budget every month is because of the expenses. And there are three different types of expenses. You have fixed expenses, you have variable expenses, and you have what I call the non-monthly expenses. Now, we all know fixed expense, those are the ones that never change. They're the same every month. Those are things like your mortgage or your rent payment, your car payment. They don't change. You have them every month, and you know they're going to happen without fail. The variable expenses, these are the ones where they're not the same every month, but you have this expense every month. Things like food, fuel, auto insurance, if you're not on an annual payment with that. Gym membership might be one if it goes up and down. Those are your variable expenses. But then the ones that are the big gotchas on our budget are what I call the non-monthly expenses. Those are things that happen every year, but they do not happen every month. So you have things like your clothing. You don't buy clothes every month, or at least most people don't. So you probably have clothing, or your insurances that you pay every quarter or every year. Those type of things, those are in the non-monthly accounts. Or your car tags is another example, is non-monthly. So the first key is to do a new budget every month. The second key is to do a zero-based budget, so where it balances. And for your budget to balance, you just take your total income for that month minus the expenses, and it should equal zero. In fact, it always needs to equal zero. So whenever you do your new budget, take your total income minus your total expenses, and it needs to equal zero. Now, you might be freaking out right now going, wait a minute, Justin, if I have no room, no pad in my budget, I'm going to have overdrafts. Not if you follow the plan. Simply put is, if you follow the plan, you're not going to have any overdrafts. Now, if you're worried that you might be short or whatever, it's okay to give some pad in your budget, but call it that. So put $100 for, say, blow money or miscellaneous, knowing life's going to happen and you're not sure what it's going to be. So when you're trying to balance this budget, even 20 years from now, when you're becoming a budgeting expert, you're going to have one of two issues when you try to balance it. You're either going to have money left over, meaning you had more income than expenses, or you're going to be short, meaning you had more expenses than income. Well, versus waiting until you get there and now there's all this stress, let's balance the budget first. So if you have more income than expenses, that's great, but you didn't win if you've got $300 left over. What I recommend doing is whatever extra money you have left out of the budget, put that toward the baby step you're on. So if you're on that baby step $1,000 and you've got an extra $300-400 in your budget, boom, I would earmark that immediately to go towards that emergency fund because you want that funded as soon as possible. Or put that towards your debt. Maybe you can pay off that small medical bill off. Now, if you're short, if you've got more expenses than income, you're not Congress. You just can't print money and hope all's okay. You need to reduce or eliminate some expenses that month so your budget equals zero. And that's what you need to do. It's called a zero-based budget. And again, if you follow this, it will actually give you a sense of peace and hope. The third key when doing a budget is what we call the budget committee meeting. How that looks is if you're married, the budget committee meeting, usually one of you puts together the budget. Now, some folks, they can huddle around the laptop and do the budget together. I have found that most people, if they try to do that, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, but you might need marriage counseling trying to do a budget together. So what I recommend is one of you are kind of the nerdy type who likes numbers and spreadsheets and whatever else. You put together the budget. So you do the new budget. You get all the income, you get all the expenses, and you make it balance out to zero. Then when the kids are in bed, TV is off, cell phones are off. When all that's done, you and the spouse get together and go over the budget. The person that put the budget together, give it to the other spouse and have them review it. And that's where they're supposed to give their input. Hey, you know what? We need more money for clothes this month because it's back to school shopping and we've got to get more clothes for the kids. Or it's where you go, you know what? I'm not understanding why we're doing $200 in gifts this month when we still owe back taxes. This doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we doing this? What this does, it helps create communication. Because the number one cause of divorce in America is money fights and money problems. So if you can get the money thing under control by doing a budget, because when you do a budget this way, you share your dreams, you share your goals, you share your fears. Now you have an agreement on what you're doing with your money. You're not going to be fighting about money anymore. Now, if you're single and you don't have a spouse, this is where you want to find an accountability partner. And an accountability partner, you want someone that can give you the truth in love. Meaning, if you want to spend a bunch of money extra for an Easter dress, you're going to go, you know what? The accountability partner is going to say, you've got a lot of debt. Maybe that's not what you should spend your money on. Maybe you should put your money towards the emergency fund and go find, something else reasonable than going and buy all these dresses. But the flip side, the accountability partner, you want them to be able to say, good job, you did awesome, keep it up. You want that cheerleader, because it's hard when you're single to make the right decisions when it comes to money. The final key when it comes to budgeting is you need to live the budget. You need to live it. Live what you do, because one of the most stressful things in life is when we create a plan, we get excited about the plan, and then when we don't follow it. Whether you're single and you don't follow it, or you're married and one of the spouses don't follow it, if you're not following this budget, it will actually cause you more stress than it will give you peace. But I will tell you, in 100% of the cases, of the couples that I've coached, of the single people, whether they have kids or no kids, when they're doing the budget every single month, they're balancing it. They're bouncing it off either their spouse or the accountability partner, and they're living it. If you're doing that with the budget, I will tell you, you will be in more control of your money than ever before. Now, a couple warnings with this budget thing. The budget takes about 90 days before you get it right. The first budget you do will probably be a disaster. Why? Because you're not used to living on a plan. So understand, this budget thing may not work out, but the first month, it's going to be rough. The second month, it won't be as bad. And the third month, usually by the third month, that's when the light bulb goes on and you get it and you got it. But each month will get better. I liken it to learning how to drive a stick shift automobile. The very first time I learned how to drive a stick shift was my father was teaching me on my car. It was a 5-speed automobile, and we're going down the road about 70 miles an hour and heading up on a T intersection. And I'm in 5th gear, and I need to slow down and stop. And so what I do is, or what I was supposed to do rather, was put it from 5th to 4th. But instead, I put it from 5th gear to 2nd gear. Now, I don't know if you know much about cars, but if you're going 70 miles an hour and you go from 5th gear to 2nd gear, if your car does like any other car, my car did, it made a very loud noise, and it wasn't a happy noise. My father made a loud noise, and it wasn't a happy noise. And so get the scene. I'm learning how to drive this. I got a stop sign. I got to stop. My car's making a noise. My dad's making a noise. I am freaked out that I'm going to just blow up the car or something. And other times I would, try to drive the car. I would kill it. I wouldn't do the clutch just quite right, or I'd spin my tires. But after doing it over and over and over, I got to the place where I could drive the stick shift. No thought. Now, I haven't drove a stick shift manual transmission car for about 2 years. My father-in-law is working on his very sweet 1984 Camaro, and he's getting it redone. It's a 5-speed as well. The moment I get back into that car, I'll have no issues driving it. Why? I did it over and over again. Same with the budget. The first month, it won't work. That's okay. The second month, it gets a little bit better. And the third month, it will actually begin to work. And you'll be able to go, wow, I am so glad we did this. And I can't tell you how stories after stories after stories. I mean, just like I read that email from the day, from a current client, they're not even done with 90 days of coaching. And the last part of her email was this. I also just finished writing out our current bills. I know it may sound weird, but it's nice feeling to know that I can pay my bills on time, and I know how much money we have all the time. Thank you so much for your help. This is the power of budgeting. When we come back, we're going to talk to you about how to control impulse spending, because if you're not careful, the impulse spending can be gotchas to your budget. Well, we're going to show you how to nip those, and so you can win on those gotchas when we come back. Thanks for joining us on the Strong Tower Financial Hour.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hi, my name is Steve Bensmo with RE/MAX, where a house becomes a home. And when your host, Justin, wanted to sell his home, he gave me a call. I want to share a little bit about my buying philosophy when I work with home buyers. I always want to make sure that people are taking into consideration what home they can afford, not what home they think they can afford. So I ask a question around if they've really looked at what their budget looks like for buying a home. And there's for two reasons. One, I do not want my clients calling me in 2 to 3 years to do a short sale. I want people to be able to order pizza on Friday night and not be worried about the mortgage on Monday. So if you're looking for a home to buy, and you want someone on your side to make sure you're buying the right home for you right now, give me a call at 515-257-6531. Again, that's 515-257-6531. Or check me out on Facebook. Again, I'm Steve Bensimo with RE/MAX, where a house becomes a home, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thanks.
At Conroy Insurance Services, LLC, we help families and business owners protect their most valuable assets. We have established an excellent reputation with our clients, and we will continue to strive to exceed your expectations. Our talented team of insurance professionals are always available to assist you, and that is why we are independent, trusted, and preferred. Hi, I'm Bob Conroy. Contact me for all of your personal and business insurance needs at conroyllc.com.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And we are back live here at the Webcast One Studios, Strong Tower Financial Hour, where we do give people hope with getting control of their money. Well, quick review of where we went today. So we started our today's show with talking about the emergency fund. And when it comes to the emergency fund, you need to have an emergency fund. Why? Emergencies are going to happen. Car repairs, medical repairs, or medical bills, house repairs, they're going to happen. Are you prepared? Do you have money set aside for those versus using credit card or overdraft protection or not paying a bill or borrowing from friends and family? So get an emergency fund. We also talked today about budgeting. When it comes to budgeting, we talked about the 4 keys to doing a budget successfully. 1, you do a brand new budget every month. Why? There is no such thing as a perfect month. Things are going to happen, and you need to do a brand new budget every month. Secondly, with the budget, you want to do income minus expenses equals 0. Let's create your balanced budget. Third, you want to do a budget committee meeting. So if you're married, it's where you and the spouse get together and you discuss the budget to make sure you're on the same page. If you're single, get an accountability partner to help hold you accountable to your goals and your budget. Then lastly, make sure you live on your budget. Well, how do you stay accountable, married or not married, to those areas of impulse spending? Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone has them. Those areas where, I want to get X amount a little bit more and just a little bit more. How do we keep from doing impulse spending? Well, there's an old-fashioned system called the envelope system. And I know you're thinking, wait a minute, Justin, this is the year 2013. Why in the world do I need to be using envelopes? Well, envelopes help prevent impulse spending. This is not something that I created. This is not something that Dave Ramsey created. And we both heard from this from a guy by the name of Larry Burkett, and I'm pretty sure he didn't create this. This is something that was a very old financial practicing tool, planning tool that back in the day people used. And here's an example of an envelope right here. And you don't need to use envelopes on everything. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people is they have an envelope for their mortgage or an envelope for their utilities. You do not need an envelope for your bills. You need an envelope like this for your impulse area spending. Think about that for a moment. What are areas that you just spend without even thinking about it? The universal one's food or eating out or entertainment. For some, it's hobbies or entertainment, going to the movies. Going shopping to buy clothing or to go buy whatever. What for you are the areas of impulse spending? Well, if you have trouble spending in a certain area, for sure you want to use an envelope. Now, simply how the envelope system works is you first identify the area of impulse spending. So, for example, on this one, we have food, okay? And it looks like our monthly budget for food is $600. So let's take it for an example. Let's say you have a food envelope, $600. Let's say you get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month. And so on the 1st, you put $300 in. And on the 15th, you put $300 in. And so whenever you go buy food at the grocery store, you use the food envelope. Well, what happens when there's no more money in the food envelope? Well, you can either go to the pantry, you can warm up leftovers, get creative. Bottom line is we only buy out of this envelope food. So let's take that example. Again, you get paid on the 1st and the 15th in the example, $300 each paycheck you put in, so that way it fulfills your monthly obligation of $600 for food. Well, you're excited. The very first week, you go to the grocery store, you bring your envelope, and you have $300 in there, and you say go once a week to the grocery store, and you spend $150 each week. And let's say you go to the grocery store, and that first week, you're watching everything you get just perfect, and you get to the cashier, and your total comes to $148.75. You give them $150, and yes, that first week was a success. Most people can do that. But what happens that following week when you had one of those days on the day you're supposed to go grocery shopping? I mean, from the time that you wake up, nothing goes right. So you wake up, you have your day, you have 3 voicemails at the office, things aren't going well, you're not getting along with your kids or your spouse, or there's a bad grade that comes in from one of your kids, and finally, mercifully, the day ends, and you remember, oh shoot, I have to go back to the grocery store to get groceries for the week, and you're going, that's the last thing I want to do. So you go to the grocery store, everybody's there, you're tired, and you just, you know what, I don't care. You're not even thinking about envelopes. You're not thinking about Justin Bennett. You're not thinking about any of that. You're just pulling everything off the shelf that looks good. That looks good, and that looks good, and that looks good, and that looks good. Finally, you get to the check register, or cash register, you put everything on there, and it's starting to go beep, beep, beep. It's going, right through that little conveyor belt, and you're having a heart attack as you're watching that flat screen, because you're watching these dollars go up and up, and all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, I have this thing called an envelope, and the cashier goes, well, your total today is $205.03. And you're going, I only have $150 in here. So much for your theory, Justin. This don't work. Or does it? What would you have done before? Well, I'll tell you what my wife and I, Jessica, did prior to using the envelope system, prior to using a budget and the baby steps and the emergency fund. We would do one of two things. We would either write a check for the groceries, knowing we didn't have the money in the account, but the overdraft protection would catch us, or we would put it on the credit card. In fact, I remember when we first were married, she had 2 kids from her first marriage, so all I had to do was add water, boom, instant family. And I remember we actually were more excited the month we didn't have money for groceries to put it on the credit card because we'd get more groceries. That's not exactly a wise financial plan. So what we do now, and this actually literally happened over the weekend, my wife and I were household shopping, and we were, at the local place where we go to household shopping, and I knew we were close to our envelope for household. And so we had mouthwash at home, and I knew, we might need some extra mouthwash. We're getting kind of low. And so I kind of hold it back. And as we get to the end, your total comes to X dollar amount. And that's all we had in the envelope. So I told the cashier, would you please put this back? Sure, no problem. Now you might be going, really? You're going to put back the mouthwash? Yes, I'm going to put back the mouthwash. We didn't have enough money in the envelope to get everything we needed at that point in time. Not that big of a deal. Well, so back into the example, you have $203 is your bill. You only have $150 in this guy. You simply go to the cashier. You know what? I don't need this, and this. Not a problem. And so what we do is they'll just take it right off of your receipt. Okay, your new total is now $148.75. Go to your envelope, give them $150, and on your way home, it's been a stressful day, but this was the time where you put a line in the sand and you said, I'm not going to go into debt. I'm not going to write checks that have to depend on the overdraft protection or get an overdraft fee. I was disciplined because the money was there. And when you have that moment, or moments like that, you'll believe that finally you can take control of your money. And the reason why is pretty simple. If you don't use envelope system, and let's say you use a debit or credit card, by the way, this is a debit card, I don't use credit cards, but let's say you use your debit card or credit card when it comes to these areas, there have been studies that show you will spend an average of 12 to 18% more when you use plastic versus cash. Why? Well, the studies show us that when you spend with cash, it neurologically registers as pain. Pretty incredible. And in fact, I'll never forget when I saw this to me happen for the first time, in the wrong way, actually. Right below a studio actually is a Burger King. And I actually used to work about 10, 12 years ago, actually just not too far from here. And I'll never forget I was coming to work and I needed breakfast. And it was back in 2000 or 2001. And it was the first time I ever saw credit card machines at fast food restaurants. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Who's going to be using credit cards for their Big Mac? You got to be kidding me. I know Burger King doesn't do Big Macs, but who is going to finance their breakfast? This is just dumb. I just couldn't believe it. Well, a few weeks later, I'm running late to work. I got to hurry and get some food. My stomach makes this real big, loud noise, which reminds me how hungry I am. I don't have a lot of time. I'm in line. I'm kind of figuring out what do I want to eat. I open up my wallet. No money. And I'm not getting paid till Friday. And I need something to eat. I am a growing boy. I have got to eat. Well, just this once, because I wasn't prepared and I got to eat, I'll put it on my credit card and swipe I went. Now, how many of you really think that was the only time I ever swiped my credit card for food? It wasn't. Because then a few weeks later, I fell into the same trap. Why? I wasn't budgeting. I wasn't planning ahead. So I was hungry, ran out of money, put it on the credit card, and did it over and over again. And then when friends are going out to eat, sure, let's go out to a restaurant. I'll foot the bill. No problem. I got this lovely piece of plastic. I can make the payments every month. That's easy. And you do it a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time every month, put in the credit card or whatever. And pretty soon that catches up to you. At least it did me. And I wasn't trying to see how recklessly I could spend. It was just a little bit here and a little bit there. It wasn't large purchases. I mean, there was, I think, 1 or 2 large purchases I made. But by and large, when I was doing it wrong with money, it was impulse spending when I didn't have the money. And so I put on a credit card. And then later there came a point where the payments, where we could just barely make them, stress was getting stronger. This is not working for us. And then that's when we said, we've had it. That's when we went to doing the baby steps. That's when we went to using the emergency fund, doing a budget, getting out of debt, using the envelope system. It has helped create my wife and I a level of peace with our money that would have never happened before without using these emergency fund, budgeting, and envelopes that we've talked about today. That's why it is so important. And if you don't believe me, the power of cash or credit when you swipe, ask McDonald's. When McDonald's first went to using plastic, their average, or before using plastic, their average ticket was $4.50. When they went to plastic, their average ticket was $7. That was a 45% increase in revenue that fast. So imagine getting a raise that fast. So if you're used to making $20,000, how would you like to go from $20,000 to almost $30,000 that fast? If you make $50,000 a year, how would you like to go from $50,000 to about, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 that fast? That's what happened to McDonald's when we went to plastic. When you use cash, you are more careful with your dollars. So with those impulse areas, and for almost everybody, it's food, eating out, entertainment, use the envelopes. In fact, it's interesting. I called a client earlier this afternoon, a past client from last year, and we were talking, and I didn't realize they were on vacation. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you on vacation. He said, no worries, Justin. I said, well, how's things going? He said, funny you asked. We're on vacation, and we're using the envelope system. And I just pulled out my envelope to make sure, as I'm on vacation, and we're not overspending, and it feels great. Wow. So whether it's on vacation, food, entertainment, again, I highly endorse using envelopes. Our family uses it. When I work with all of my clients, I push and push and push. Please use the envelope system. It will change your life. Folks, that's all the time we have for today here at Strong Tower Financial Hour. I want to thank Ryan Northfield, our producer. Thanks to Webcast One Studios for allowing me the opportunity to use the studio. And we want to help you going from being broke and scared to hope with a plan. Good night.